Imagine. Imagine you're the head of a wildlife crime trafficking syndicate, and you are based in a small country where everyone knows everyone, so you're very well connected. Imagine that the country you live in is right next to another country which has excellent infrastructure, and it also has direct flights into an area of the world which is full of endangered wildlife, and your business is running perfectly. Now imagine you're on the other side of the fence. Say you work for an organization like ours that does anti-wildlife trafficking work. And you see lots of little things which are basically clues. So you see, for example, lion skeletons, entire lion skeletons being transported. You see the horns of various African rhino species being transported. You see staggering numbers of African elephant ivory. And they all seem to be connected either by the same telephone number or perhaps the same consignor or the same company which is importing it. But together, they don't really add up to a whole. It's like looking at the wrong side of a fabric. You can tell that there's a vast and complex pattern on the other side, but you're on the wrong side. So what do? You wait and watch and wait and watch for the traffickers to make a mistake. And eventually, they do make a mistake. And that one mistake is like a snip in that fabric, which allows you to unravel that entire complex network and see what's actually happening. That actually did happen. And it led to the unraveling of this syndicate run by this man called Vichai Keosawang. He was based in Lao PDR, and Lao PDR is right next to Thailand. Thailand has direct flights into South Africa. So Vichai Keosawang and his Thai agents ran this extraordinary business where they would recruit Thai prostitutes working in South Africa to apply for hunting permits for rhinos, and the rhinos would actually then be shot illegally by professional hunters. And their business ran really successfully. They were extraordinarily successful, so their overconfidence and their arrogance grew and grew and grew until they made that one mistake which snipped and unraveled everything, which is that they got so arrogant that they transported the horns internationally using photocopied transport permits. It was a really small thing, but that was the thing which allowed us to unravel everything, and working with Thai and South African authorities, we were able to facilitate the investigation. Eventually, one of his Thai agents was convicted in South Africa, and Keosawang himself was named and shamed internationally. And there's, in fact, a sort of bounty on the organization leading, if anyone can provide enough information, leading to the dismantlement of that syndicate. So why does wildlife crime happen? Why has it become one of the major transnational organized crime, and why is it worth nearly 20 billion US dollars annually? Well, what drives it? It's driven by the need for trophies, such as rhino horn. It's driven by the need for traditional medicines. Rhino horn is used for that as well. For ornaments and trinkets, which is what ivory is used for. It is also driven by the consumption of exotic meat, which really affects reptiles like monitor lizards, turtles, snakes, etc. But the exotic meat market also consumes a lot of pangolins. Now, when we talk about pangolins and we say they're small little animals living in Southeast Asia and Africa, most people haven't even heard of them. They go, huh, penguin? Don't you mean those birds in Antarctica? Well, no. Pangolins are these little scaly anteaters. They are mammals, even though they're covered by scales. And right now, they are the most heavily trafficked small mammal in Southeast Asia. What you see right now is a typical seizure. Each of these little blue bags contains one animal, and a typical seizure may have anything from 50 to 200 animals being transported, and we see many, many pangolin seizures a year. We almost get used to seeing pangolin seizures, except one time when we were really shocked. This is a map of one of the major consumer countries, Vietnam. The green circles show where the pangolins were seized on land. But the worst seizure ever was a seizure at sea, which is the big blue circle. And that represents 17 tons of pangolin meat, which basically is almost 2,000 animals because they're small animals. And this was frozen. They were not live. The animals had been cleaned and gutted, and the pregnant animals had had the fetuses removed. Because if you're having a bowl of pangolin soup, what is a better garnish than a pangolin fetus floating on top of it? So the exotic meat market is pretty big. The other big driver is the demand for exotic pets. Some people, I guess, are just too cool to have dogs or cats or bunny rabbits, so they want something really rare, like a tortoise which is almost extinct in the wild. Or in this case, these little slow lorises, which look like cute little teddy bears, but their cuteness acts against them because they're transported for the pet trade. And they have very long incisors, and so that they don't bite the buyers, the traffickers almost always pull the teeth out without anesthetic. There's a very high degree of mortality in the trade because they're transported in suitcases like this. So we get to see animals in practically every stage during the trade. We see them live, we see flesh, we see derivatives, we see finished products. It does get a little bit disheartening. But sometimes we come across something absolutely bizarre. So about 5 or 6 years ago, there was a sudden upsurge in the Tokay gecko trade. Tokay geckos are lizards which are about this big. And all across Asia, right from India to the Philippines, people were going crazy about Tokay geckos because there were all these rumors that the World Health Organization wants to use the Tokay geckos for cancer medicine, and that if you collect a gecko and sell it to the World Health Organization, you're going to get lots of money. So people were collecting these animals like mad. And we also saw a website like this. If you see the rightmost column, I've circled the price in US dollars. This website was claiming to offer $2 million per lizard. Now, if anyone here is thinking, oh, that's a good reason to get into the Tokay gecko trade, let me assure you this is not realistic. What this website really is, if you read the small print carefully, it's a scam. They offer you $2 million per lizard, but first you've got to pay them $100,000, and then they'll check if certain conditions are met. So basically, they're trying to scam gullible people out of their money. But this really illustrates what we run up against in the fight against wildlife crime and trafficking of wildlife species. It's never, ever, ever about the animals themselves, never about any actual scientifically proven benefit to using or consuming these animals. It's always, always about the value that humans attach to these animals, the perception of strength or power or value that people attach to them. Now, one common misperception we see very often is, ironically, from people who want to help. They say, okay, so there's a huge demand on wild populations. Why don't we just breed these animals in farms? Why don't we breed rhino like cows? Why don't we breed tigers like cats? And then we'll just flood the market with supplies from these harvested farmed animals, and that'll reduce the pressure on wild population. Now, that makes perfect economic sense on the face of it, except there's one other law of economics. As a consumer, if you get the same item 200 times cheaper from this source rather than that source, which one are you going to go for? Obviously, the cheaper one. So it is actually 200 times cheaper to poach a tiger in the wild than to raise it on a farm with the housing and veterinary costs and food, et cetera, et cetera. So almost always, where there are these so-called farms, which are supposed to breed wild animals, it usually serves as a way to launder these animals because unscrupulous farm owners pay poachers to go kill them from the wild, and then they pretend they actually bred it on their farm and sell it while making a hefty profit. So rather than take the pressure off wild populations, it actually increases the pressure by creating more demand for the poached animals and their products. So what does work? Now, wildlife crime actually is recognized as a serious crime by many governments, which is good. So lots of governments are taking steps against them. They're investigating transnational syndicates. They're getting together to form these regional wildlife enforcement networks. And organizations like mine, Freeland, we come in to augment government efforts. So for example, we may do training in the field, anti-poaching or investigation training. We set up these so-called war rooms where we have investigators from various parts of the world getting together and discussing live intelligence, working on live cases. Because the wildlife crime scenario in the world right now is so organized and so international that the enforcement response to it has to be equally transnational and equally organized. Otherwise, we're just fighting a losing battle. Sometimes we often assist directly in police investigations, such as by acting as decoy buyers.
The three slow lorises are wrapped in blankets on the sofa.
Now they're scared. They're scared. Yeah.
So this one,
Girl,
not from Thailand.
Indonesia.
You went to Indonesia?
My friend, dear friend from Indonesia, he buy for me, bring to Indonesia, yeah, Thailand.
But what Onkuri discovers next is new and startling information.
Like if they fall sick,
I sell for friend, go to America, Europe, Asia.
wow.
But then buy for me, take medicine, one medicine, sleep about 20 hours.
Jay is a bigger dealer than the task force realized, smuggling slow lorises around the world, drugging the animals, keeping them hidden.
So the reason why we support police investigations is like this is because we want them to go after the high-level syndicate members. There's no point just catching the low-level traffickers. So the question that inevitably comes up is why? Why should we care? Why should anyone care about saving animals? Well, first of all, if you declare an area as a tiger reserve or rhino reserve, you're not just saving that tiger or that rhino. You are literally protecting every single blade of grass and every tree that is in that reserve, which means you're protecting that patch of nature which provides vital ecosystem services to humans outside the reserve. Secondly, there's a lot of cruelty in the trade. Now, this is a picture of dogs. Dogs are not wildlife, but I'll come back to why I'm showing this picture. But wildlife itself is transported under extremely inhumane and unhygienic conditions. So we've seen tortoises wrapped in plastic so that they suffocated and died inside their own shells. The pangolins I showed you earlier, they're transported extremely dehydrated, not very clean, and often at the point of sale, they're force-fed flour or cement also to increase their body weight for sale. So there's a huge amount of cruelty in the trade, and just in the interest of reducing the cruelty in the world today, we should take a step against wildlife crime. The reason why I'm also showing you the dog picture is because this is where wildlife crime intersects with other kinds of transnational crimes. So we know, for example, that people who move these dogs, they're also believed to be moving wildlife as well as drugs hidden between the dog cages. We've investigated brothels in some countries which have bears as well as underage girls. So if you're a customer, you can go pick a bear, have its bile extracted for an energy drink before picking an underage girl. Wildlife crime also intersects with armed insurgent groups who often use wildlife products to raise money for their weapons. So if you don't care about clean air and water, if you don't care about cruelty, if you don't care about human suffering, at least care about the rise of insurgencies, of criminal groups fueled by wildlife, because unfortunately in many parts of the world, it is still a low-risk and high-profit crime. Finally, I would like to talk about a more intangible reason why we should protect wildlife. Animals and nature, they've been part of collective human consciousness ever since the first cave painting. So from cave paintings to cartoons, we have used animals to teach us virtues and morality, to express our hopes, fears, and joys, to make superheroes out of animals. And to have all that lost and looted by a few greedy people, that is outrageous. Now, I know today's theme is about heroes, and I know and I've met a lot of very heroic people in our line of work, people who are risking their lives and health and security to protect nature for the rest of humanity. But also, I think some of the greatest heroes are these living things and life itself. Think of it, we're all on one planet. As far as is known till now, it is the only living planet in the known universe. We're like passengers on this little ship which is floating through deep space. And I think the most heroic thing we can do is take care of our fellow passengers. Thank you.